It's really my great pleasure to introduce the F.A. Hayek Memorial Lecturer, Lorenzo Infantino. Thank you, Lorenzo. Professor Infantino is a professor of methodology of the social sciences in Luis in Rome. Luis is one of the few private universities in Italy. Infantino has written 2 books that have been translated into English: Individualism in Modern Thought from Adam Smith to Friedrich Hayek, and Ignorance and Liberty, both published by Routledge. He is also the editor of a collection entitled The Austrian Library. He is the Italian translator of Mises, Hayek, Kerzner, and the editor and translator of Murray Rothbard's America's Great Depression. He has been a visiting professor at Oxford and at Madrid, where he was invited by Professor Jesus Huerta de Soto. So without further ado, I present Professor Infantino.
Thanks to all. As a young student, I enrolled in the Faculty of Economics, thinking that I could acquire analytic tools capable of explaining, at least in part, social reality. My hopes were soon disappointed. The institutional course in political economy was based on the teaching of Piero Sraffa and on the Keynesian use of the multiplier. And the course in history of economic theories was focused on the study of some chapters of Karl Marx's Capital and Paul Schwitz's theory of capitalistic development. Those teachings did not answer the questions that had nourished my interest in economics. I had not chosen that faculty because of the professional opportunities it provided at the time, but rather to find some direction in my life. My most pressing questions were: why do men act? Why do they act in a given way? But human action is precisely what was missing in the courses delivered by my professors. Thus, although I did complete my studies in economics with first-class honors and summa cum laude, I remained very dissatisfied. Therefore, I decided to broaden my cultural horizons by studying sociology, which I believed would be able to shed some light upon human action. And yet, once again, my hope was disappointed. I found myself in a blind alley, from which I came out only by studying the representatives of the Austrian School of Economics. At first, I knew very little about that school. I was familiar with the critique of economic planning and believed it was the sole contribution of those scholars. At the time, I did not think I would find in that tradition a comprehensive theory of human action. For the most part, sociology does not keep its promises. And if you think about it, this should come as no surprise. The name was coined by Auguste Comte, to whom we also owe the expression positivism. Sociology originated as positivistic sociology. Thus, it used the gnoseological premise of positivism, that is, the idea of a positive, not hypothetical knowledge, which must be taken as a point of departure and foundation. This is why Comte promptly states that in his science there is no place for chance, a superficial philosophy which would make this world a scene of miracles has immensely exaggerated the influence of chance. All sensible men in our time admit that chance plays only a very small part, Comte said. Comte goes on to write, in astronomy, physics, chemistry, and physiology, there is no such thing as a liberty of conscience. That is to say, everyone would deem it absurd not to place confidence in the principle established for these sciences by competent thinkers. If the case is different in politics, this arises from the circumstances that the old principles having been abandoned while the new are not yet unformed, established principles during this interregnum do not exist. But to convert this transitory fact into an absolute and eternal dogma amounts to a proclamation that society should always continue deprived of any general doctrinal basis. It must be admitted that such a notion justly deserved the charge of anarchy brought against it by the ablest defenders of the theological system. Siding with the defenders of the theological system and replacing religion with positivistic science, Comte does something similar as Plato, in whose work philosophy takes the place of religion. In both cases, there is a reaction against the advancement of the market society and an attempt to reconstruct society on the basis of an absolute knowledge, which is entrusted to privileged minority, philosophers in Plato, scientific men in Comte. The founder of sociology, namely Comte, believes that the social order must be intentionally built by the minority of the wise. He enters into a dispute with economists, whom he accuses of wheeling the spirit of anarchy and of failing to understand that the political government must be the head of society and charged to bind together the component units and to direct their activity to a common end. It is therefore no accident that Comte himself attacks the principle of liberty of conscience and comes to the conclusion that where individual autonomy is recognized, there is no society. If Comte's analysis had been correct, there would not have been the advancement of the market society and the consequent globalization. The hasty statement according to which individual autonomy and the social life are actually incompatible is the result of Comte's inability to grasp the reality that was taking shape and to see its future projections. Such a position was sustained by the positivistic conceit of possessing non-hypothetical knowledge. There is no problem, there is no drama, because privileged knowledge allows some men to decide on behalf of everyone else, to do away with the autonomy of individuals. And yet, if that gnoseological premise fails, and it must, Comtean sociology reveals poverty. In fact, it does not succeed in its intent to be the science of society,